To this section on JQuery, we're going to take a project that we've actually already seen, the Mad Libs project, and we're going to actually change some things in it to make it shorter and more succinct using JQuery. So this is the original program that I made when I was designing the Mad Libs project. I actually already had put some JQuery in here, and so you can see a couple of some of the already very often used jQuery methods of functions here, the hide function that I'm already using. But what I want to show you what to do today is actually take functions like you see here with all of this really long text and actually turn them into jQuery functions and actually make things a little bit easier. You could do it with these query selectors up here, but I just want to focus on one specific area. So as you know, jQuery is really just a library that helps make our coding within JavaScript a little bit easier. It's a library in the sense that there are lots of pre-designed functions and methods that help make our lives, like I said, easier and shorter a lot of times. And so there's one thing about jQuery that makes life a lot easier, and it's not having to write out document.getElementById all the time. And so we know that this random place right, even if we look up here in the HTML, that there's going to be an ID called random place right up here. Let's see if we can find that here, random place right. Oh, there it is, right there. So that's where I'm going to end up writing in the values of the inputs that I hear from a random source. We already have our randomizer method, our custom method from an array right here. So what we're going to do right now is actually just make all of this shorter. We know that first off, what we need to start out is that instead of getElementById, we know that if there's an ID in jQuery, what we can actually do is just look at the selectors and make sure, okay, if there's an ID, then I'm going to want to start things with a hashtag. So instead of just this quotation here, I'm going to put a hashtag in there. And I know that because I already have the hashtag, I don't need this document.getElementById. But instead, to start all jQuery-based functions off, or jQuery-based lines, I'm just going to put a $sign right there. $signs indicate to the program that, hey, I want to use jQuery. So I was able to replace document.getElementById with a simple $sign. With this $sign, then I say, hey, jQuery, I want to select an ID. I just use the hashtag with that, and then I just write the name of the ID that I want. So we have random place right, and here is random place right. So I can just do that. Now, what we want to try to do here is say inner.html. That is a regular JavaScript function or a regular JavaScript method. So what I want to do is actually just Google what is inner HTML in jQuery. I already know it, but one really helpful thing for you is to always look it up. So inner HTML in jQuery, I can just Google this, and oh, here it is. It actually gives me lots of options for that. And so I'll just click on the W3 schools because that's a normal one, and it gives me an example. It says that, oh, if I want to take a p tag in the HTML, I just put .html and then whatever I want to be written into the HTML. So if I go back to my program here, I don't need inner HTML. All I need is .html. And there's no equal sign for this method. All I have to do is put a parentheses and then whatever I want in there. So, oh, well, that's a lot easier. So instead of having this equal sign, what I will do is just put parentheses around what I want in there. And this thing is already something that I want. This places, which is pulling from this array. I'm getting a random element from the array places and getting its value. And so I can just keep that. And so what you see here is that I went from this huge thing to this very simple thing right here. This very simple line of jQuery. And what I'm going to do is just replace all of my lines like that. So there, $sign, say I'm going to use jQuery, then I'm going to put a hashtag to say I want a random place right to. Instead of inner.html, I'm just going to write HTML because we're using jQuery. I'm going to use my parentheses, and close it out with my parentheses. And I'll do it the same with this one, like this. Hashtag again, use HTML, put my parentheses, just like the other one. Here we go. $, hashtag, HTML. Perfect. And then I have just a random verbs one, and then a whole sentence. Show, and I wonder what this is here. So it's saying go get an ID that says whole sentence. Oh, there's the ID that says whole sentence. And I want it to show it because actually up here is what I did is I hit it. Let's actually see what happens if I take this away. What happens? Oh, so I actually took this entire paragraph here and I hid it using jQuery. And what I'm doing by activating this function here is I'm showing it. Well, that's cool. So let's just trace back our steps here and saying there's a function that says all submit. I wonder how that function is activated because I don't see it activated here in my jQuery, or sorry, my JavaScript. So let's see if I can see a place in HTML where it's activated. And oh, there it is. It's an on-click button. So there's a button. It must be this button right here. It's the last thing on the page. And it says on-click, all submit. Well, there's actually a better way to do that in jQuery. So what I could probably do is like, oh, it's a class of a button. So instead of that, instead of just writing function, all submit, I can actually probably keep the function. But if we do this in jQuery, let's actually look up how to do this. So let's see how to do a click in jQuery. I can just look it up here, and oh, there's a W3 jQuery click method. It says that, oh, all I need to do is start out with jQuery with the sign, then with the $, select some type of HTML selector. This is a paragraph. For me, I'm doing a button, and then click, and then whatever function that I want to carry out. Okay, that's cool. Let's see if I can do that. So I have a function already. I don't need to name the function anymore, but all I need to do is say I want to do jQuery, and I want to use the button there, and I want to say, it says do .click, and then it tells me to put it in parentheses. Okay, so I need to put that part in parentheses and then go down here and put that in parentheses. I don't need that anymore because it's not a regular function, it's a button click function. So I actually was able to do pretty much all of this in jQuery. Let's make sure that it works still. So my three animals are dog, cat, and mouse. So it's run, jump, and play, and we'll say Berlin, Paris, and Amsterdam. And let's see if it works. There it is. So we were able to do the exact same things with jQuery as we were with HTML, but we have about 3 less, actually like 5 less lines of code with that, and it's all like really, really easy to use, and it's a lot less redundant. You get to use just these hashtags instead of, you know, writing get document by ID. You don't have to have like all of this code then now is superfluous. It's like a lot of extra stuff. So for example, I don't need this on-click function anymore because I have an automatic event listener from this .click so that it replaces all that for me. So that's pretty cool. So anytime I click a button on here, actually a better way to do that, instead of just saying button, I could just replace this class with, like, let's put ID button 1. All right. Oh, actually I could keep the class button, and I could say ID equals button 1 because it looked like I had some CSS on there and it, you know, messed up with this here. So I'm just put ID button 1, and then instead of just button here, so that it's like anything with the class button doesn't like make it clickable and click this function in case I want to put more buttons on the page, I can just say button 1, and so instead of button here I just put hashtag because it's an ID, and then button 1. So let's save and make sure this works. Again, dog, right here, dog, cat, mouse, run, jump, play, Berlin, Paris, London. Oh, look, still works. Awesome. So this is a short example of how to use some jQuery in order to shorten your code, and actually it's a lot easier just to memorize things. It's a little bit more straightforward, like with this hashtag as any ID, the .click instead of having to do an onClick and then create a separate function for all that kind of stuff. You can just say anytime you click on an ID with button 1, do all of this stuff right here. Like I said, I can hide things, I can show things with it, and this makes life a lot easier with all of your JavaScripting. So good luck with everything else, and look forward for more videos on how to do some different jQuery functions.